Well, good evening. I'm Alan Jackson, and welcome to Nashville. We're going to begin tonight on the economy and a learning experience. What to do with your family's financial assets during times when it's a challenge to predict what might happen next. While the dollar is still the strongest currency in the world, there are a lot of other factors in the mix. China has been setting up banks across the U.S. that use Chinese currency in addition to the dollar, and we have very little idea what their long-range plan is. Bitcoin is making a resurgence along with other cryptocurrencies, but it exists only in digital form and it isn't regulated or issued by any country. There's nothing you can hold in your hand or put in your wallet. Beyond that, there are other sorts of currencies and assets, land, homes, jewelry, even art. But the one that's getting the most attention, especially while the markets are rising and falling, are the commodities, specifically precious metals, silver, platinum, and of course gold. Long before George Washington was on a dollar bill, gold was being used as the most enduring asset. So here we are, doing our best to figure out the best path forward. And when the daily assault of news continues to heighten the tensions that already exist, it makes for an unsettling time. Well, joining us tonight is someone who knows a lot about how to do this right. He's the CEO of Preserve Gold. Daniel Boston, welcome to Nashville.
Thank you, Alan, for having me.
This is a great opportunity tonight to ask the questions a lot of people have on their minds about how to build their financial future. Gold certainly looks and feels more valuable than assets on paper or in the blockchain, where crypto is stored. But there's a threshold that regular folks have to cross to actually buy an ounce of gold, since the only gold most of us have is in jewelry or a wedding band. Can you help explain a bit of this process to us?
Absolutely. You know, gold and silver is, first of all, the oldest form of currency on the planet. It's been around for the last 5,000 years. It's always had value. It always will have value. Paper currencies like the dollar have been around for the last 300 years. Nobody knows that experiment's going to end, including myself, but my guess is not very well. So psychologically, it's just really important to understand this, but you're not really buying gold, you're not buying silver here. What you're actually doing is you're shifting. You're shifting from paper money into hard physical currency. The irony right now is that the dollar's been trading at record highs for a long time. It's been coming down at a pretty substantial rate. So right now you're getting far more ounces in gold or silver than you would in any kind of normal market. But as the dollar does continue to break down and decline, like we've seen with all the money printing that's been going on, you're going to see much higher prices in both gold and silver as a way to offset against that loss of purchasing power.
So when people invest, do they actually get a gold bar to keep at home or in a safe deposit box?
They do. So we don't deal with anything paper. This is all physical metals, hard physical metals, bars, coins, rounds. There's literally hundreds, if not thousands of different products to choose from. So the precious metals experts at Preserve Gold have been well trained to take the time with the investors that we work with to really understand and ascertain what are your goals, both short-term and long-term, and then based on that, we can provide some recommendations. There's two different ways you can go about acquiring physical metals with Preserve Gold. If you have cash savings, whether it's money in a bank, checking account, savings account, money market CD, in a brokerage account, you can simply convert those paper assets into hard physical metals. If you have a retirement account like an IRA, a 401k, thrift savings plan, or any other qualified retirement account, we would establish a new IRA that allows you to roll over funds from your existing retirement account into the new IRA, completely tax-free, penalty-free. So instead of having paper assets in the account, you have hard physical metals in the account backing it up.
Wow. You know, 25 years ago, an ounce of gold was less than $300. Now it's well over $3,000. How does that compare with other places where people have put their money?
Well, you know, gold is really an insurance crisis metal. So it's not correlated to stocks, bonds, it's not correlated to any other paper asset class. It moves inversely with the paper markets. So we can go throughout time. First and foremost, gold and silver is simply a direct measure of strength or weakness against the US dollar. It moves opposite of the dollar. As the value of the dollar declines with money printing, for whatever reason, for the last several decades, we've had Congress and the Fed that made it seem like the best way to solve debt problems was to create more debt, obviously unsustainable. And so that creates just tremendous tailwinds for gold and silver prices to go a lot higher as the dollar goes lower. In the same way, when money rotates out of stocks and bonds during a market crash, when it rotates out of cash during periods of inflation, it just needs a place to go. It tends to gravitate towards gold and silver first because they're the classic safe haven investments, and that's what causes prices to go up. So if you look at the markets, for example, in 2000, we had the techmania.com bubble burst. Essentially what happened is first the bond market went sideways, oil prices plummeted, the dollar got propped up, the stock market sold off shortly thereafter. In response to that crash, gold and silver prices more than doubled. In 2008, same thing. During the housing crisis, gold prices doubled, silver prices more than tripled. And that pattern's been repeated throughout history as we've had periods of economic uncertainty and geopolitical tension.
Well, there's a big shakeup going on now with the president's decision to try to level out the global tariff rates. Some businesses will benefit, others will have to make some changes in order to comply. Do those tariff negotiations make investing in gold even more attractive?
It makes investing in gold extremely attractive. So there's a lot of fear that's been created. The administration's come in and, President Trump understands there's some problems that really need to be dealt with. So on two fronts. One is the tariff action that he's taking. We've been dealing with a trade imbalance for a long time where, we've been operating at a more than $1 billion deficit every single year with other countries that unfairly operate in terms of how they trade with us. And I think he's gotten to the point where it's enough is enough. If we're going to truly make America great again, which is what he's always talking about, we need to rebalance the way trade is done. So either one, these countries are to come to the negotiating table, or we're going to have to deal with the effects of these tariffs. Unfortunately, with tariffs, the ones that ultimately pay the price for these price hikes are consumers. Prices get passed along to businesses, increase prices, and we have to pay higher prices. So the hope is that we're going to see some trade deals done short term, so we don't have to see that. But I think it's a real pain we're going to have to deal with short term to get to the outlook and the outcome that we really want.
Daniel, I hope you'll stay with us for another segment. We've got several more questions.
Absolutely.
And if you want to jump in on this conversation, you can go to ajnow.com, send us a question or a comment. Everything you tell us helps contribute to what we do next. And we certainly want this program to grow, so tell your friends about us. We'll be right back. Well, I'm back now with the CEO of Preserve Gold, Daniel Boston. Daniel, let's go back to when you started. What was it that drove you to launch Preserve Gold?
Great question. I've been in this industry for over a decade, and in my time doing this, I've just come across and worked at companies that were great, but there were some practices I personally didn't agree with on a moral level, and just got to a point where I realized if I wanted to do this the right way, I needed to do it on my own terms. So Preserve Gold was launched with the mission of integrity and transparency being at the forefront of everything that we do. So, I've worked at companies where unfortunately, shipping was taking 6 months for people to receive metals and things like that. I just realized there had to be a better way to get this done, and Preserve Gold really stands out from our competitors to just really bring a lot of education and insight as well as transparency.
That's awesome. As a nation, we're now $37 trillion in debt at least, and Congress is working hard to get a budget and a tax deal, knowing that something must be done this year. Listen to the chairman of the House Budget Committee and what he had to say.
The question is, will we have the political courage to execute on that and right-size the bloated bureaucracy, as was reflected in the president's budget, and deal with this wartime level debt, $2 trillion in annual deficit spending that's going to double, and interest payments that exceed not only national defense, but Medicare payments. We risk a sovereign debt crisis if we don't deal with the unsustainable deficits and national debt.
Now, that's quite a strong warning. But the good news is that Republicans and the DOJ team are genuinely working to do something about it. Do you see some of the stability in those efforts down the road that will help us feel more secure about where we're going as a nation?
Absolutely. What Donald Trump is coming in and doing is he's trying to right all the wrong that's been done for so long. There's been so much damage that's been created with these past administrations, again, who believe that the best way to solve debt problems was by creating more debt. We have a problem, we have some social justice program that we want to create. The MO has been, let's turn on the money printing machine, print money out of thin air, devalue the dollar. And that's just a path towards complete unsustainability. So now thank God, we have a president in office who realizes that this is a real problem. And if we don't deal with it, as his own words said, President Trump said, and Elon Musk, If we don't deal with this problem, we're on the verge of bankruptcy as a country. So the only way you do that is you have to decrease spending. So the way I look at this whole thing is I look at it like a business. On one side, you're lowering your operational budget. So you're reducing your spending. On the other side, you're also trying to reduce taxes. That's usually a recipe for disaster. But if you're going to try and create some balance and really support the middle class as we go through this transition period, it's going to come with some real economic pain. I think we're in the first inning of what that pain is going to look like, but the long-term outlook for sustainability is going to be well worth the pain we're probably gonna have to go through short term.
Well, it seems to me that one of the things you're doing is offering the middle class an opportunity for some stability that's not dependent always on the knuckleheads in Washington.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we have Fort Knox and the Federal Reserve Bank in New York, and they're both stocked with gold to back the dollar. Do other countries have similar gold assets set aside, and to what extent is gold and silver bought and sold globally?
Gold is universally traded. You can buy gold from Preserve Gold, and then you can land in Australia on a vacation, take your gold there, and you'll receive the fair market value for whatever those products are worth. It's really interesting that you bring up Fort Knox. There's been a lot of momentum around this theory of rehypothecation that I think our viewers should really know about. So after World War I, Britain was owed a lot of money from the United States. They didn't trust the US dollar at that time. And so what they did is they asked for that payment in gold. Well, on the Fed's balance sheet at that time, gold was only priced around $20. The market price for gold was around 42. So they revalued the price of gold to 42 so they can sufficiently pay Britain the debt that was owed. Since the early 1900s, the price of gold on the Fed's balance sheet is still $42. The market price on gold's $3,400. So one of the theories that President Trump's been floating that's been gaining a lot of momentum is they're talking about revaluing the price of gold to the current market price of almost $3,400. That would create $1 trillion of brand new money on the Fed's balance sheet without having to print it out of thin air. So that would create just tremendous opportunities for investors in gold. There's also a lot of momentum being talked about bringing the dollar back to the gold standard. They're going to have to readjust the market price to $5,000, $10,000 because there's a lot more dollars in circulation than the amount of gold above ground. And so that could send gold to $10,000, $20,000 an ounce. Some of the top financial analysts have talked about this at great length. So I think there's just this really great opportunity right now for investors in terms of where the price of gold is right now. I think we're in the first inning of a pretty big move. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, geopolitical uncertainty. So all the factors that you look for when you want to, when you're investing in something like gold and silver are really there right now.
There are a number of commodity offerings out there. So tell us what's different about Preserve Gold.
Preserve Gold really differentiates itself based on education, integrity, transparency. Those are the three things that I really stand by as pillars. That's how I've driven myself as a individual, and that's really how I drive our company going forward. So in terms of integrity, transparency, there's a cost associated with doing business. We want to make sure everyone understands what those costs are. We have nothing to hide. There's a lot of value for investors coming into the market right now, but we are a for-profit business, and so we got to keep the lights on. In addition to that, in terms of education, we take an investor educational approach. A lot of times with these companies that I've worked for in the past, it's almost like the experts on one side, the investors on the other side, and it's a negotiation that's taking place. That's not really how we operate at Preserve Gold. It's two people sitting on the same side of the table. We really try and wrap our arm around the individual that we're working with and do a lot of hand holding. We don't let people come into this market with their eyes closed. There's an educational approach that we take. Again, it really takes time understanding what are people's goals, both in the short term and the long term, and then based on that, we can provide some recommendations. Look, this may not be the right option for people. It may be the right choice, but we're here to provide all the information that's needed so people can land in a place where they can make the most informed decision for themselves.
Well, before we finish today, can you tell us how we can get in touch to get more information?
Absolutely. So you can text Allen, ALLEN, to 50505. You can give us a call at our toll-free number. That's 877-444-0923. You can also visit our website, www.preservegold.com.
Very good, and you'll give them the information they need to know to get started on their journey.
Yeah, just give us a call. We'll provide all the information. We'll meet you where you are. We have some free informational materials that we'll be happy to provide. And we also have a promotion right now for viewers of the Alan Jackson Show, where we will provide up to $25,000 in free gold and silver on the first purchase.
Wow. Well, Daniel, thank you for your time today. It's all very helpful, and we appreciate you giving us some practical information on a pretty confusing topic.
Really appreciate you having me here.
Thank you. When we come back, I'll have some thoughts of my own about how we can move forward in this season of economic hope and disruption. I want to talk about some sound fundamentals for dealing with our financial resources. Now, the good news is the Bible provides perspective on this. Here's one: establish a plan. You probably showered this morning. I hope you did. Many of you had the dishes done in your home today, and maybe even washed some clothes along the way. Well, you're able to accomplish these tasks because there was a plumbing plan in place when your house was built. A plumbing plan executed well allows you today to have water supplied to the kitchen sink, the bathrooms, and all those places where you need it. It's not random or accidental. There was a plan. Well, when it comes to your material possessions and your financial resources, the most significant step is establishing a plan. You do it on purpose. Be intentional with your time and your energy and your resources. Here's a plan that's worked for me, and it's one I've shared for a long time. It's simple. It's the 10-10-80 plan. The first tenth is the Lord's. That's a biblical idea. The biblical word for that is a tithe. And where you pay your tithe, I believe, is where you go for your spiritual care and support, wherever that may be. God promises that if you'll honor Him, He'll honor you. Well, the next 10% goes to savings and investments. That'll require a little self-discipline. The remaining 80% is for your living expenses and the needs that you have. Get a plan, and if you don't like that one, then choose another one, but be certain you have a plan. Be intentional with what you have. I also want to ask you these questions. What fills your mind when you dream about your future? What's capturing your attention, your ambition, the great efforts of your life? What are you willing to sacrifice for? Well, most of the influences of our culture tell us we should be pursuing pleasure, comfort, convenience, material things. There are very few voices encouraging us to commit ourselves to the pursuit of godliness. If we'll choose to honor God first, I promise you there are more reasons for hope than despair. Well, in a moment, I'll be back with your emails. Just stay with us. Thank you for taking the time to send your emails. We always enjoy your thoughts and perspectives. Greg from Washington wrote, "Is it just me, or is it now a sad state of the times in which we live, where newscasters are now throwing around the terms billions and trillions as our generation used the term millions? This is not monopoly money, but they seem to be trying to indicate that it is." Well, Greg, I think you're right. We have lost a bit of perspective as our debt has risen. The numbers have really outgrown our imagination. And we're going to have some sort of a reset to ground us again on reality. We can't spend money we don't have. We can't do it at home, and we can't do it as a nation. Sharon from Lubbock, Texas said, "We've learned so much, and so much is frightening, but God has not given us the spirit of fear. Now we can pray specifically for our leaders and the problems they face." Sharon, I think you are onto something. You know, there's a temptation that I hear frequently. It's almost as if we're reluctant to find out the truth. I meet people who are afraid to go to the doctor because they don't really want an accurate diagnosis. Well, here's the reality. We can't get to a better place. We can't get to a resolution until we can find the truth and we get that accurate diagnosis. It's true for our physical health, and it's true for our economic health. It's true for our spiritual condition. We shouldn't be afraid of the truth. Jesus said the truth would bring freedom. So if when the Lord shows us the truth, I believe He will give us a pathway that will lead us to a place of freedom. John from Cincinnati said, "It blows my mind to see all these people against Elon Musk finding all of our tax money that's being stolen by thieves called politicians. They should all go to jail or be deported to China. Keep up the good work, Alan, and the Lord will bless." Well, it is unsettling to see what Elon and the Doge crew are uncovering. It's even more unsettling to think about all of the career politicians that have been watching over the swamp with their snouts in the trough while they were stealing our dollars. I'm grateful for the light that's come to Washington, D.C., and I pray we have the courage to stand behind the people that are telling the truth. There's a better future coming. I want to encourage you to go to ajnow.com. You can see all the episodes. You can even sign up for our weekly newsletter. It'll give you a summary of what's happening on our program and beyond. Ask a friend to watch the program if you haven't. The more, the merrier. Thank you for watching tonight. I'm Alan Jackson, and I hope to see you tomorrow evening as well. Good night.